Cool. Heckin'. All right. What's going on, Sean? So we were getting on a call today to have a casual conversation about painting. I needed some direction for painting because I am throwing down on Thunder God. Here's the Thunder God. You can't really see him on the camera, but he's very cool. And so we were discussing on what should the box art look like for the campaign and why.
I called you.
It led into a lot.
I texted you, I'm going to call you after I had already started calling you.
Yeah. And I answered. And then,
boop, 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 boop. Yep. And then I was like, listen, I have an important thing to discuss. And then I said, actually, let's record it.
Yeah. And then so 40 minutes later, we're ready to have that conversation.
Are you ready? Are you ready? All right. So first, let's do some Relicbuds intro. Welcome to Relicbuds. My name is Sean Sutter.
Hey.
I'm the creator of Relic Blade. I'm an artist, independent artist, making tabletop miniature games for 10 years now. It's the 10 years mark of full-time Metal King Studio work from me. That's pretty good. 10 years? Still going?
That's an indication of great things.
I'm joined here by Malev Shinobi.
Here I am.
Artist, full-time, musician, painter, games designer. He's following the artist's path, and he doesn't say no when inspiration hits. That's my guy. So here we are. This is an episode, I don't know, 17.
We're at 17.
It doesn't matter. We
segments,
don't need to count.
Creative segments, creative Relic Blood chat here incoming.
Exactly. So I sent out the teaser for Thunder God last year. Or no, it's the beginning of this year. Right?
It was with the campaign, so it was last year.
I said we're going to do a 2025 campaign. I am working hard to get everything going for that. But the big thing about this project is I am working on multi-part plastic. Big things. So, I mean, I've been making models, choosing materials. There's a lot of thought that goes into it, but hobbyists across the world love Plamo, plastic model kits. Plamo is like the whole fun of it. You get out your little nippers, you glue your fingers together, you put on a podcast, you scraping the figgies, gluing them together, clipping them apart, There's just so much to love about plastic miniatures. Their durability, the fact that when your opponent drops their construction site size tape measure that they're using to play.
Oh no!
2x2 dropped it on the
triggered
table,
memories.
Or you swipe the models off the table, they'll just bounce and be okay. Whereas metal models can chip, we all know. And metal has been really good to me. It's been wonderful, but it's also true that it's way more expensive than it used to be. Mm-hmm. And my audience, the scale of my production is held back by metal a little bit because I can't make enough and ship enough comfortably without molds. It's a whole thing. Mm-hmm. and it's so heavy to ship it all. And the thing that's held me back from plastic is that I'll need to jump from selling 2,000 copies to 5,000 copies.
Yeah.
But I'd also like to imagine that there are hobbyists out there that I've talked to that have made the claim, oh, I like plastic better. And I get it. I like plastic. We're as physical gamers, we're very materials oriented people. We love our cards, playing cards that are nice stock, nice glossy finishes, or a nice satin finish. We like that spot UV. We like.
Yeah, it's not important until you engage with something that isn't that, and then you're like, oh wow, this is.
There's so much about the hobby that is physical. That's what we love about it, Mm-hmm. And metal has a physicality, and plastic has a physicality, and I'm always trying to produce the best thing I can. But I think that in general, the plastics company that I am working with, I buy kits from, and I love their work. I'm working with Archon for the 2-player box set for Thunder God. And their new kits are so nice. And the truth is, like, you know, they weren't doing plastic when I started. And a lot of companies weren't doing plastics.
Very different 10 years ago.
Technology has changed. So anyways, it's a big investment. A lot goes into this decision, and I think it's very exciting.
Yes, I think it's incredibly exciting, especially when you see them sculpts.
Yeah, the sculpts are really nice, and a lot of care was put into these being producible in plastic. You know, the assembly should be a little bit more fiddly than your average toy soldier, because they're like, you know, 10 or 8 characters instead of like troops that you're going to be mass assembling into big regiments or whatever. So anyways, it'll be really exciting. I'm excited to see what happens.
Can't wait to see us brew.
To meet all of those timelines, also, I have an announcement that I haven't even told Malev, is that I think I have to delay the project. I don't think I can't finish it all and have it all ready in time for Adepticon. That's what I was really aiming for, was to have the 2-player box set ready at Adepticon. But like running a Kickstarter, fulfilling the Kickstarter, and having it ready at Adepticon, like, bro, I already have my hotel booked.
Yeah.
That's how, like, you know, Adepticon planning takes a lot, and so I don't think I'll be ready in time for that. But maybe I can. I hope to run a Kickstarter this year. I'm not 100% sure. I definitely need it to be successful and to fund it so I can afford the stuff that I'm already working on putting into production. But, you know, that's sort of running a business side of things. But the conversation I logged in to have with you is accessibility on a plastic box set is way higher than a metal box set that could turn off new hobbyists.
Yeah,
because they haven't worked with it anymore, or they haven't worked with metal before.
Metal's really a holdover.
Heard rumors about metal being hard to work with, which, I mean, like, you know, probably all of you guys that are listening to this, like, love metal. I mean, that's fine, you know, but we've all had great plastic kits too. So I think we don't have to worry about a drop in quality from Metal King Studio.
Yeah, no,
it will be different, you know, and some of the range will be in metal, some will be in plastic. But this project is very much a introductory set that's going to set up people to really enjoy what's best about Relic Blade. And because I'm producing something that has a much higher minimum order volume, I need to be able to sell more copies of it. So that's where I wanted to talk to you about miniature painting for box art. Miniature painting for attracting people to be able to see what it is and engage and love it. Because I have this thing in my the way I engage with model kits, that like I often don't love a sculpt until after I've painted.
Until you actually get your hands on it. I had that realization last night about and this is funnily on topic, because I've complained to you ad nauseum about the length of the gun holster for Primaris models. And I was looking at a kit last night, the Blade Guard kit, and I noticed that every single holster is its own piece. And I was like, I don't have to put it on. I don't have to put it on. And I immediately almost wanted to buy the kit. I was like, I want it right now.
That's so funny.
I was like, oh my God, like this, I could just not look at that, you know?
Guys, just so you know that Malev and I sometimes are mortal enemies. I love the giant pocket, the huge,
The huge
like
holster
300-pound like holster hanging right in the front.
It goes
It
from your
reminds me
hip
of
to your
Hellboy.
ankle.
That's what it is. It
Mm,
reminds me of
mm.
Hellboy with
I
his
feel it.
big
I feel
pistol
it.
that he always has
I feel
buckled
it.
like right in front.
Uh-huh.
You
I'm
see
with
that a
it.
lot in Relic Blade figures where they'll have like an accessory hanging just
It's
like
right there.
in the
Yeah, yeah.
front.
But this is
It's a Hellboy
sensible.
thing.
You know, it's
Yeah.
sensible though. It's sized.
It's
It makes me go, that works. That looks like a satchel instead of that look like a dude's shipping a box. Like he's got.
But
Yeah.
I think those Blade Guard are hilarious. They're definitely little Hellboy Space Marines to me. But
Yes.
well,
So
no, little is the wrong word. Yeah. So I was thinking, all right, we're operating in a time, a golden age for miniature wargaming, I believe.
no, for sure.
I have been playing a ton of Conquest, Last Argument of Kings from Parabellum games. That's like when my local game store. That's what the guys are playing. So I bought an army, and I love it. It's tons of fun. It's been a wonderful opportunity to get out and hang out with friends and have like a place where people know your name. Like if you're thinking,
Like that
boy,
show.
it's funny, I live in a time of isolation. You gotta try and gotta go to your weird local game store, and if they don't have a miniatures game night, see if you can put up, because they probably are selling Warhammer to a bunch of other guys hiding in closets throughout your small town.
Yeah, you gotta
And,
find
you
them.
try and get it started. I recommend it. Heck, actually start a Relic Blade game night and tell your game store to carry Relic Blade, and especially if I'm going to have plastic kits, then you can maybe rope some people into it that are scared of metal.
Yeah, we'll help you. So definitely do that.
Yeah. Especially since I'm hoping to be able to, with a plastic kit, I can hopefully offer a discount to a store that is viable. Whereas with metal, right now I'm selling it to you guys at the cheapest possible price because it's so expensive, which means stores don't really get much of a discount, and that's no incentive for them to get it on the shelves. But with plastic, I hope I can dig deeper and help with actually making the game accessible, because the cost of metal has risen way faster than I raised my prices. So I'm just getting. Anyways, that's not what we're talking about. Well, we're starting at Parabellum Games. They make wonderful miniatures, especially their new stuff. So if you got introduced to the idea of Conquest when it first came out, their plastic kits were, lower tier on the to Games Workshop level. Games Workshop's making the best plastic kits that have ever been made. On a different evolutionary tree than Bandai, who's making the best plastic kits ever made, but for posable mecha. So it's anyways, those two companies I think are making the best plastics. The old Conquest models were a lower level of quality, a little bit, which is understandable for a very first thing. But their new stuff is through Archon, and they're really extremely nice multi-part plastic kits. Sometimes it can be fiddly assembling plastic kits, but Games Workshop doesn't always have easy assembly.
I would say they're the ones who are responsible for any of the fiddly plastic kit assembly these days.
Yeah, I just assembled my Idenef Deepkin kit, and I was listening to Ash review the Idenef
the book
rule book. And I forget, maybe it was during when he was talking about the spearhead, but yeah, he was like, I do not recommend this kit to beginners because it will make you go insane trying to assemble these. And I didn't go insane, but I definitely
But you're not a beginner, but you see it, right?
I'm not a beginner.
Yeah,
You're right.
yeah.
30 years of gluing my fingers together. So I should be able to.
But when someone in our position does find ourselves like thinking about that sort of thing, thinking about the assembly, and this is the sort of stuff we're trying to avoid, you know, because like I'm thinking about like assembling like the Orc Commandos Kill Team kit. This is a fantastic kit, but the way that it is laid out, like I felt like I felt like I'd gone through something by the time I assembled them. I was like, huh, oh my god, I'm tired now that I assembled these 10 orcs. Like the stuff that it felt like just to navigate different parts on the sprue, referencing the instructions, and wait, but that's not on this one. Oh, that's on the third frame. That's this little piece, and like that whole experience was just so arduous. It felt like.
Yeah, I've had kits. And you know, for me, assembly is like one of my least favorite things.
Yeah,
which is why
same.
many of the Relic Blade models are one part. So you're really just doing cleanup and then maybe gluing a hand and
just getting in there.
So anyways, as far as being able to look at a photo of a three-dimensional thing and kind of know what you're looking at, I think the paint job matters a lot.
Yeah. Paint job and photography, that combination of those.
So when I'm looking at Parabellum games, Conquest miniatures, their paint jobs, sometimes some of them are more successful than others for letting me see what the model is like. And I think their newer stuff is like doing really good at that. I was just showing you that the new ancestor figure, that like metal guy that has the fire coming out of his head. Like I think that paint job is working really well for like being able to tell what it is, even though like the concept is a pretty abstract thing.
Yes.
It's a suit of armor that has like a fire creature bursting out of the top of it, so it's a little bit weird. And then their new Yoroni are like Japanese inspired Oni monsters, and there's some like really good paint jobs on those, making it clear what you're looking at. Whereas some of the infantry models in the older range, sometimes the colors kind of blend together, and subtlety ends up being kind of a problem, I think, with like gray tones, which are very naturalistic and very neat, but sometimes you can end up like not really being able to tell what the model is in the photo. So that's something that stands out to me, like looking at what would be good. Another experience I had was with Corvus Belli's Infinity models. They're like really high-tech power armor guys. Like they look kind of like, you know, they almost all look like ninjas to me.
Yeah, and if encountering them for the first time, it like from a design perspective, it was something I never thought of for even half a second. But the moment I started to physically engage with Infinity stuff, did like just a decade's worth of history from Games Workshop design language in terms of shape, in terms of all these different things, where I realized, oh my gosh, like a Space Marine is so different from an Eldar Guardian, that's so different from a Imperial Guardsman, and I'm looking at these two guys and I go, what is that? Like, what's that on his? Is that the same thing? Is that thing?
It has its like lore reasons, like
and they're really interesting
across multiple armies that everyone like uses those combi rifles.
Very realistic lore
so
in that regard. Yeah, and
like you learn to see it, and then you learn to love it. But I think that the Ángel Heralda's paint jobs early on were kind of a disservice, because he could paint anything and make it look like shining, beautiful gems, and it makes it hard for someone who doesn't really know what they're looking at.
No, it's like, I didn't know
that's a robot, instead of being like, that's a gem thing painted by Ángel Heralda.
Well, and even from that perspective too, I remember feeling like from going back to, you know, I grew up painting Space Marines and stuff, so having that background, I knew because the GW style and stuff, they were teaching you how to paint and stuff. And so I was doing that and learning my thing. And it wasn't as nice as theirs, but I never felt like I wasn't really painting something right. Whereas Infinity, I really was like, I almost don't know what this looks like. Like,
and you don't know,
without
like,
this highlighting style. Like I want to push the highlight to white. I want to push the crazy reflectivity. I want to use non-metal metallics because
that's another
I
thing,
don't really
non-metallic metal.
You know, like I felt like that's how the game looks, and I need to replicate that. But I didn't know how to at the time, which was a really curious barrier coming from just kind of being able to do, you know, base and highlight and stuff in the shade. I really was like, do I shade these? You know, like I was like, whoa, where do I put the base?
I'm looking now. I wish I could screen share, but whatever. You guys, this is a podcast. You're all working out or doing dishes. All right, Black Legion officers for Warcrow. This is a new release. I don't know who painted it. I'd love to give them credit. It doesn't say who painted it. Anyways, okay, great. Here's a perfectly painted miniature, an award-winning, gorgeous, unbelievable miniature. Like, to me, that makes it like mine is only going to be bad by comparison. Like, I cannot begin to consider reproducing the pants on this guy, let alone any of the special effects. Like, you should look at it, Malev. Let me send you a link.
Let me I'll bring it up on the phone.
Because, like, okay, great. It's perfect. What do you, like, you know, and I think there's something to be said for these painters that are so...
What did you say the thing is called?
I sent a link.
Oh, okay, let me click that.
Black Legion officers.
Black Legion officer. Is it site?
But look at his puffy pants. I think the male officer. Okay. I mean, the female officer too.
Oh yeah, no, this is like... Oh, please, let me zoom in.
Okay. Yeah, okay, this, and they won Golden Demon for this? You want me to know how I'm supposed to paint my guy now? So there's something to be said in my mind about reproducibility.
Yes.
In box art. Because when a model is painted that well, the model never mattered. Like, that guy, it could be a couple of like spheres and that painter would make it look.
Yeah, because to your point, what makes this paint job to me that kind of you know, that level is that, because I think about, like, looking at the pants specifically, it makes me think of like this age-old question of when you'd post something and someone go, wow, that looks great, what's the recipe for that? And then you go, it's white and turquoise. You know, like, it's white and turquoise. That's what it is. Like, there's nothing crazy about it. But what they're seeing is that subtle green and the gradation, the volume control, the darker, you know, shadows and the light and stuff. And so this question is like, the recipe doesn't do anything because it's white and the recipe is white and turquoise. And maybe we're going to talk about glazing in like browns or something like that. You know, so all these little surfaces are just so finely volumetrically controlled with all of the, you know, like turning them into basic shapes. But then I'm looking at like the helmet on their hip is almost invisible. Like, I have to really look at the figure and go, what is it doing? Oh, it's holding on to the helmet, because the way that the helmet's painted, it kind of disappears. And then I'm thinking about the coat and how it being non-metal metallic as a choice in the box art is making the non-metal surfaces on the coat, which would just be like golden thread or rope, look almost identical to all of the what would be gold surfaces.
Yeah,
And
all
it
the
just
gilding
makes
throughout the
it
model.
so confusing in that way. And in that regard, that's a thing where I just know that your average painter would be clueless to approach painting that, because it's almost like, what do I even do? Like, what is that? And it's like, oh, that's actually a coat, you know, like,
Yeah,
oh,
and I think yeah. So I guess one of my bullet points is too good of a paint job hides whether the sculpt is good. And part of the joy of miniature painting for me is that the sculptor already did so much of the work that you're more like applying techniques
yeah,
to bring
to
out
make
the
something look
sculpted
away.
shapes and sculpted volumes rather than doing a drawing or artwork from scratch. Whereas I think like the stripes on his pants are an example of like that's the painter is doing that work, and it looks amazing because of the
Wait, I didn't
painter's
even notice
careful
that.
work.
So those are not even sculpted. There's no little
No,
in.
I don't believe so. No, if
Interesting.
they are, they'd just be like dividing
Yeah.
lines.
Yeah, that's kind of, that was what I was thinking they might have been, but
Yeah.
yeah, I didn't even
So,
think about that part.
so I think that's interesting to me. Is if I were going to try and design the perfect paint job to show someone what the model is, I would try to avoid uh, too much work on the painting side to exaggerate shortcomings of the model. Does that make sense?
Oh, for sure.
Are you tracking with that thought process?
Yeah,
Um,
I've painted a couple of models like that for sure. Where you go, ooh, not the
so
coolest, but we're working with
you
it.
know, listen, guys, you've hopefully all been to my website and seen that it's not easy to navigate everything, and it's not easy to see all of Malev's amazing paint jobs, and the photography is old. I'm scrambling all the time to try and keep up. I can do like miniature photography for like 2 days a year. Uh, so forgive me. This is all brainstorming to try and figure out I can do best next by looking at my peers in the industry who are all killing it and doing great work. Because that's another thing I'd like to say about Infinity models is looking at the paint jobs, I didn't know what to expect when I bought them. And then when I bought them and applied, some washes and some blending and some edge highlighting, just kind of classic heavy metal tabletop ready approach, those models looked amazing and were so fun to paint. But I didn't know from the photography whether the textures would take a wash because they were treated so expertly by an airbrush style painter, where I do all of my work with a brush. Games Workshop goes without saying, the most successful miniatures company in the wargaming space. Bondi, I think is. I haven't looked at the numbers, but I think Bondi is probably still bigger than them. But let's just say for miniature wargaming, undisputed champion, Mr. Games Workshop over there. And so, in a lot of ways, you could emulate them. Their model kits, I'm looking at I just went to gamesworkshop.com or warhammer.com. I clicked on their banner ad. The main new release is Grand Cafe, is what they're trying to show me right now.
The Cathy joints.
Even though white backgrounds tend to be kind of annoying for me to look at, they've got like really strong shape language on all of their designs. So these models are like extremely easy to look at. The colors applications is all like really, really clean, of course. Really nice blends, tons of edge highlighting, which creates a really defined each part of the model. So like I just clicked on some Jade Warriors. This little showcase of the command stand has, each belt strap of his armor has a highlight on the top and bottom of each belt strap. Each little jade filigree decorative element to the armor has the jade with like 3 layers of highlights. I think that this paint style does a really good job of showing what the model is without covering it up. Like I was talking about before, where like non-metallic metals or certain like blend effects with airbrush can kind of obfuscate some of the detail. Whereas I think some of these, like you can just see the model so clearly, it's almost like each subtool of the sculpt is colored and highlighted by a computer in some ways. Um, I don't know. I think one of the drawbacks I can imagine from this approach is it creates an impression for a hobbyist to like that they need to be edge highlighting every element. And I've seen people get caught up on trying to paint at this level an army and only paint one or two models.
Yeah,
I never
the
never
big
finished the
trap.
60 other models in the army, you know. Um, which, you know, the idea of getting someone to paint all their models is a whole other conversation. But I see that as a potential downfall. But I really like the way they are able to show the dimensionality and parts of the sculpts. Um, yeah, I mean, what do you think about heavy metal style? Because we started the hobby. I started the hobby with Warhammer. I read how to paint articles in their magazines and books. So in a lot of ways, like my foundations of understanding were built from the coloring book approach that they have. But now I paint in a totally different way. But I
Yeah.
also have a degree in art, and I've been working professionally in the industry for 10 years. And so I'm not the average hobbyist. But tell me a little bit about what you think about heavy metal style as a box art.
Well, like I mentioned, like learning, I think that is a huge thing about GW specifically, that not necessarily that people take for granted or anything, but just it sort of can kind of fade to the background of their all of the other exciting things that they make, just like the products and the games, is like this whole concept of their paint system being really important for their business model, really, because you know they wanted you to paint this stuff as well, you know, like it isn't where Relic Blade and all these other games sort of rely on that foundation the Games Workshop set up, which is this expectation that you paint miniatures, you paint the models, you know, and you buy paints to do that, and they're not just any paints, they're these paints, and then we've got specially formulated paints to make this easier on yourself. These ones are more opaque, these ones do this, these ones do that, this one's blood in a thing, this one's, you know, rust in a thing.
Yeah, and that's another funny thing with the like paints having a certain name. Because like there is a Vallejo paint called Medium Flesh.
Medium flesh, it's for the medium people.
And it came, and it's like this weird yellow, and it came in a set of paints that I had recommended to a friend, and I took his copy of Medium Flesh with a Sharpie and scratched out Medium Flesh and wrote Battle Cat Yellow.
Battle Cat Yellow,
Just to like break the you don't use this
for medium flesh.
This
Yeah,
is a yellow paint that will
this
be
is
wonderful
this is
for your
ochre.
So yeah, this is a wonderful paint that is for your Battle Cat, like the He-Man.
Yeah, this is lion skin.
Abandon the idea of medium flesh. But
Yeah,
anyway, sorry.
it's like that being built into it, you know, that they literally taught us, you know, in a way that Vallejo never could, or any other game really ever could. And so with that onboarding process, which, you know, God, what I experienced was how I still think that it's happening, but I think that I'm really wrong, because I am almost positive in these new codexes they ain't saying shit about how to paint your space marines, you know. And the older publication,
We're gonna have to mark this as an explicit episode.
Yep. So
Games
now
Workshop isn't saying they're remaining
beep. I could,
quiet.
yeah, I'll put a horse noise there.
Yeah, right. I mean, they've got their whole YouTube thing, but yeah, it's different.
But yeah,
The
no, but
like,
when I mean, but it's the whole, what I mean is like this element of the hobby, right? And that being specifically being like thinking, collecting, building, painting, army list stuff, everything that's not really rolling dice and at the table. All of this stuff, the older publications had that in mind. They sort of, in a way, the codex, not only was the codex supposed to tell you what the army did, but because of what the codex is from a product perspective, the this is my little book as a player that I use to play my army. It makes sense to have the painting guide related to Space Marines, and these guys use this color blue, or these guys use this color blue, and these guys
they
did
also
yellow.
had advice on like
Building, all
and
that stuff.
gluing sawdust to your
Yeah, everything was covered because that's what was necessary. You just didn't have any frame of reference. But nowadays, that's not
undermining the heavy metal style, because like
in a way. But what I'm sort of like leaning towards is like, because of that onboarding process, the heavy metal style, it felt not to say aspirational, but it to me, because of the way that I can see it totally being different today, but because of the materials that I consumed growing up, it felt adjacent. Like I felt as if I could perhaps paint in the heavy metal style if I just do these things that it's saying, and I kind of practice on it and emulate it a little bit more and more, and then I'll make my highlight a little bit more finer, do a little bit this, a little bit that, and then so it never felt like, from the box art perspective, especially the older publications, which like quite literally now your average can paint better or as good as the level at painting was back in the day, that it helped in a way. Like it excite me. I didn't look at box art and feel like distant from it, or in a way. So
it felt achievable.
It felt in a way that like I could emulative, like
attainable.
Yes, in a way, or at least attainable in that manner in which you did enough work and you creatively did the stuff that it may not be the 1-to-1, but you're still pretty stoked on what you did. Like you're like, yo, that's actually pretty cool. Like that looks really sick, actually.
And
and I did that quite a bit.
Part of it too is you want to play the game. I want to play the game with the graphics fully rendered. I want to play with colored models, and I'm comfortable as a creative person, like setting the tone for my tabletop. So whenever I start a new game, I decide on like what style I want it to be, and like I paint all the armies and base them in a certain aesthetic, right? So it might be like really quick speed paints, or it might be like more cartoony, no wash. But like, I think that's a decision that isn't also informed by wanting to play it right in some way.
Yeah.
And so I think that another bullet point that we might put on this list is creating a way that people feel like they're doing it the right way, an official, like, or playing in that world. You know what I mean? So I think as we approach how do we want to do the paint jobs for Thunder God, that's something else, is like creating that sense of the Relic Blade way that like would feel attainable, but also you're playing in the world of Relic Blade.
I feel you.
This is another, I just found a really good example of one of my concerns as a drawback of the heavy metal style. I was just clicking around on the Eldari Combat Patrol. They have the new warp spiders. So folks, you could pull that up at home if you want to see. They've got detailed shots of the warp spiders. Let me send
Which are great. They're great models. Love them.
I wonder if I can send this image to Shinobi. All right, so I just popped that over to you so you can see what I'm looking at. Maybe see it on your phone. The edge highlighting on the warp blasters, web spinner, I don't know what it's called, sorry guys. I
Yeah,
even
yeah.
have some of my models. But like you see how just every edge has that treatment,
Yep. That's
and
the
then
heavy
like
metal style. Yeah,
the
yeah.
X arc on his like abdomen and chest and face, every edge comes to a bright point. It's kind of like the way a 3D render program would, edge detection software. You know,
No,
it like
and I think that is it nowadays, like fast forwarding to today where the heavy metal style is codified, because that's the difference, is that back then heavy metal was just the guys in the room, you know, that
yeah,
painted
but I
it.
mean that
But
is good
now,
because we do what we were just talking about. You do want to have a unified, cohesive world,
because now
whereas
this
like
is
that was one of
teachable.
the problems early on with Conquest. I think was
Yeah, where they were
some of
sort
the
of,
paint jobs didn't look like they were in the same
yeah, yeah,
universe.
yeah. And
Uh,
so I know that they teach classes now, like you can everyone, well, it's probably been a while, but there was a time where you could go and learn the heavy metal style
yeah.
and learn their methodology and their logic as to why and what you hit and how you do it, which
So I
is
think for
effectively, yeah, exactly what we're looking at right here, what you said, that edge
for a
detection.
consumer that wants to know what the model kit is shaped like, this couldn't be better.
Yeah, you see everything.
You see everything, you see every detail, you see the edges, the depth,
You
the
can even see
volume, the
the
shapes. Yeah.
under
With
their
the
hoods,
like
there's the little green nodes
yeah.
that they painted
Yeah,
back
with the
there.
treatment of edge highlighting, you even get like contour lines, so that makes the 2D image look, you know, you can get the volumes and everything in your mind. So it works really well, but emulating that paint style would be would not be very fun, I think, for most people.
No.
Uh, like edging is great
Pause.
for edge highlighting is great for certain applications, but it's such a tedious process
Yeah,
that I
that's
think
the
you
big
might
thing.
turn someone off from the hobby if you're creating unspoken expectation that they need to be edge highlighting all of the panels on the guns instead of just being like
You know what also is an interesting thing related to specifically that, because like on the Warhammer official Instagram, they did like a little Q&A, ask us whatever, and I asked, how long does it take to for a heavy metal studio painter to paint a single Space Marine,
mhm.
considering this
Did
treatment?
they answer or were
And
you
they
trolling them?
answered no, because I was legitimately like, yo, how long does it take? Is there an
Uh,
average? Do you know, like, what would you expect if you came into work? You know, that's kind of where I was
yeah.
coming at it. What is the sort of expectation for if we want to get 10 guys done? What are we looking at? Because all 10 of them have to be that. Everything has to have the three freaking highlights and stuff.
Yeah.
And they responded and said about 16 hours.
Yeah.
And so, and that information made me go, oh wow, that's great, because I don't want to spend 16 hours to paint a Space Marine. So now that I can tell myself it's gonna take, it took 16 hours of painting this
How
one
much
guy for it to
experience?
look like that. You know, it allows me to look at it and go, all right, I can make a trade-off. What do I want to focus on? You know, I don't need it. I don't want to spend 16 hours. So I'm going to do a highlight here. I'm going to do one over here, you know, and think about it a little bit differently just with
Yeah,
that
so
information.
we need a balance between creating a look that is very readable in photography, that will give people a fun colorways guide on what paints they might buy with their box set if they were at a hobby store, you know. Um, what you know, give them an idea of material. Sometimes you look at a model and you're like, is that a shoulder pad or is that not? You know, is that,
Hmm.
or is that character wearing gloves,
Yep.
or do they just have a big hand? Um, you know, those, and especially on these my sculpts, like I think that's a totally valid
Oh
question. Like,
yeah, the
is
one that
there
comes to mind
anything or
is
not?
the
Yeah,
wood shoulder pad Dark Wanderer. They're like, yo, check it out.
Yeah.
I got my wood
So
solder.
so let's move on from uh, Games Workshop. They are obviously wonderful. We love them. I wish their models were cheaper, but I also wish groceries were cheaper. So whatever.
Yeah, it's just one of
Uh,
those things.
Looking at Catalyst Game Labs, BattleTech, that's another popular game. Their models, that it looks to me, I don't know, I'm
Do
not
people
super
paint
super
BattleTech that
familiar.
much?
Hell yeah,
But like,
and I think they
I
have a
see,
fun time doing
I
it.
see people
I'm
painting
sure that.
BattleTech, but they're painters that I know that paint stuff. So it's like, sure, but
Well,
is
sure.
it
I
the
mean,
average? Do the average
average
peeps?
gamers don't. I don't think average gamers are painting their models. Or if they are,
Yeah.
if they mainly engage with painting, then they aren't at the shop throwing dice at me.
Damn the
They're in
trade-offs.
they're in their basement,
They're in the basement painting,
putting the finishing touches on
wishing
their
they
toy.
could paint. Man, I wish I could play a game.
Anyways, they just have renders of their models, which frankly is a valid way because I was talking about how like these heavy metal, the strength of the heavy metal style is that it's basically a shader in a render program,
Yeah.
and they didn't have to do that. They just have nice gray renders of their figgies, and then you can look at it and be like, oh yeah, they're robots. That's gonna be fun to paint in whatever camo scheme I like. So I mean that's an option. I do have renders of my models sometimes on the website, you know, and I think that's helpful for seeing shapes, but not necessarily the breakdown of what the paint jobs are like. So I have room to grow big time on how I present my models. Um, but I think having renders is good, but having only renders available to look at is is tough for me to want to buy it because I don't catch the vision as much. Like I think Weird Miniatures Malifaux, I think often they just show renders too. Let me pull that up. Web store, click clack. Um, yeah, they show the actual like packaging, and then on the back of the packaging it shows renders.
I was thinking of
So yeah.
there was older company. I'm still wondering do they still make, but it was like it was a question I always had. This is like early days of proxying.
Yeah.
I think the company was like something in the galaxy, like baddest in the galaxy or something, and I remember like they were essentially like chaos demonette alternate sculpts, and they were like early sisters of battle alternate sculpts, I think, related to that, kind of like early proxies at this time, maybe at least 10 years ago. And but I just remember I remember looking at the renders all the time. This was before like the advent of 3D printing being like almost household, and just being like, how does these exist as things?
Yeah.
And I don't know if they did, because any evidence I ever found of them being mailed or pictures of the models, they would just be broken or in some vague gray shape of
I mean, I think that's part of what I'm hoping to help with the paint jobs and with the photography is to help people like kind of get a sense for the the quality of the kit.
yeah.
And so I think that relying on renders it can be rough because I hadn't really engaged much with Weird Miniatures, but I know Mike Hutchinson played a ton of it and loved it, and my friend Lucas really likes it, and I didn't really have a good sense of their models until I'd seen Lucas's paint jobs, and I was like, oh, these are actually very cool. So there's
Well, these are actually very weird.
yeah. I was looking at Bushido's website. They do that like fantasy samurai skirmish game, and I think it plays on a 2x2. It's like kind of like they're very cool guys, and it looks like they're also showing renders a lot, even though they have some like
insane paints. Versions. Yeah, man.
Yeah,
seeing them in like the
it can be a little bit
stuff.
hard to find the photos of the painted models, which, bro, I get it, because I paid Malev to paint like gorgeous versions of my new releases of the Wizard Paragons from the last Kickstarter, and I haven't busted out my camera yet to photograph them. So I still just have renders of Wise Gwyn, even though you did like one of the prettiest paint jobs.
The Wise Gwyn. Yeah, I think that's...
Lucas helped me make a spinomatic of it, so we have like a really nice 3D like
so that you can see
on the web store, so you can like spin around your paint job.
3D dongles, love them.
Yeah. What else? Oh, we've got our friends at Atomic Mass Games. They're killing it with some gorgeous stuff. And that's another interesting thing, because these models are very recognizable characters in general. Like, I know what Bosk and Boba Fett and IG-88 look like intimately. Mm-hmm. And so for me, it's almost like just seeing those guys.
Yeah, but there's an interesting thing, because as you were saying that, and I'm thinking, I guess, from a little bit of a customer facing kind of perspective in growing up with these things, where because for example, BattleTech showing renders versus Games Workshop showing renders. Curiously enough, Games Workshop doesn't show renders at all. They show painted miniature and they show sprue, just because like that's what you're getting, that's what you're buying, this is what you want, this is what we want you to see. I mean, BattleTech just has the renders because that's what you're buying. But showing something painted,
like a mock-up of what the product would look like when it arrives, but it's a 3D model.
But there isn't that's fine for BattleTech, because there isn't any expectation for them to show painted miniatures, really. Where if you think about, like, if suddenly Games Workshop only showed the renders of the warp spiders and then the sprue, it would it would be like a betray. But what do you mean? We're you guys are the guys. Isn't this your thing? You paint. You kind of made it.
Yeah, so fun to look at. Yeah.
So them not doing something painting would be such a bizarre experience to interact with their product. Where we don't have any of that expectation for BattleTech. But curiously enough, for Atomic Mass, they could just go the BattleTech route and just show you renders. But because their characters are so recognizable, they almost have to pass like a vibe check. You have to go, yeah, that's Bosk.
True. Yeah, like if they were like, it's Darth Vader, but you didn't have it
painted, you'd be like, what the? That's a gray guy. We need to see it be that's Darth Vader. It's like this weird psychological requirement in this way.
Like IP working for them and against them in some ways.
The recognizability of it creates this underlying requirement, like a check in your brain. You have to go, ooh, yeah, that's Bosk. He's yellow. He's got the yellow suit on, and
then,
how
with the superheroes too. I think it's an interesting thing, because I've just had such a fun time painting Marvel Crisis Protocol models.
Yeah, when you paint them, do you reference the box art at all, or is it is it more like a handoff?
I think, frankly, I can just do an image search of the comic book.
Yeah, see, and I think that's what's interesting in that way, right? Because it really is a.
But the Sculpt does such a good job of dividing the parts that need to be colored that, Magneto's undies and boots and gloves,
they're just so separated,
are divided in a nice way that you're like, oh yeah, how do I want to do that? And then you have such a fun time painting the colors. So I think there's if I'm looking at this gallery, they've got a product gallery, which is just a wonderful way to do it. I should do that too. So you're really just clicking through the figures, and then also they've got info the stats and cool thematic photos, and they've got a 360 view of each of the figures. Gosh, they're just really doing a good job, I think.
It's out here showing off.
Yeah, man. Great work, Dallas. Man, you just really did such a wonderful job with the
let's talk also about because you mentioned Dallas, and then I made me think about the homie Josh Quarter Paint and what he's been
Oh yeah,
doing for,
my goodness,
because
because he's
I'm a
he's
person
doing
who's
privateer
not,
press, right?
I'm not into, yeah, I'm not like, I have not really been super into the Iron Kingdoms and the steampunk, not necessarily like my aesthetic. But I really enjoyed the Mark II rulebook because they had so much like miniature photography and stuff, and that really pulled me in a little bit more than either the miniature painting or even the art at the time. But with Quarter Paint, with Josh's paint jobs, it's like, yeah, you're looking at something so fantastic.
Yeah.
It's really elevating and making me like, oh, whoa. Makes me look at the model in a way. It's like, oh, whoa, shit.
Yeah. Oh, so I said Privateer, but Privateer Press sold War Machine to Steamforged Games.
Steamforged,
so
SFG, yeah.
But yeah, that's an interesting thing because that was another part of my like evolution as a gamer was getting into War Machine, and like I wasn't super into the aesthetic. It's a really strong style. And then once I started,
especially with the art,
I love everything about it. Like big, chunky. There's a lot to love. I think there is, for me, some like approachability issues with those second edition and for probably more like especially the first edition War Machine. They did a lot of that non-metallic metal.
Yeah, I think they even had like a two brush style that I think that,
so
but was that, wait, was that Dallas?
No, that was what's his name? Dang it, I'm sorry.
No, it's good. No, I'm putting you on the spot because I'm over here just like random things are flying in my mind.
I have his face and conversations with me, right? Matt.
I don't know if I've met
DP.
Oh, okay, totally. Matt DP is okay. Yeah, I'm familiar.
That's it. That's Matt. All right, sorry guys.
Okay.
You got this is live time, real time.
Yeah, brains.
Matt's a great listener also. But so looking at War Machine, you got to draw people into kind of an aesthetic, drawing them into a world that they might not be familiar with. And I think doing the non-metallic metal was like really a bold choice because I think people were excited about it stylistically.
Yeah, separates you from GW
like
too.
2010 or whatever. No, it was earlier, 2006 when it came out. But most people couldn't really do it, and it was like kind of like a European vibe thing. So I think it was tricky. It looks like with this new edition, they're having the same thoughts we are and doing a little bit more of the edge highlighting so people can see what's up, and trying to be a little bit more descriptive of the forms with the paint jobs. So yeah, it's really interesting. I think Quarter Paint, what's Josh's last name?
I don't know, but I think it starts with a B. We could just say Josh B.
Quarter Paint. Pulling him up.
Yeah, and we'll link him up. I'll link up some of his imageries and these images we're talking about as well, because I'm sure some of y'all have probably seen them, just not.
Joshua Berman. Yeah, so he's gosh, and he's gotten so good.
No, this stuff is crazy.
Yeah. Oh, it looks like he's doing some of the Atomic Mass stuff too. Cool. I love it. He does really nice like box art stuff.
Yeah, I need to ask him how long it take to paint something so I can feel better about myself.
Yeah, I would love. Yeah, it'd be fun if we could get him to give us a little bit of his thoughts about creating readable.
Absolutely, I should chat his ass up.
Anyway, so yeah, I think he's doing really good work, and it looks like under, probably interacting with Dallas Kemp's art direction on these exact topics of like how do you create a paint job that is aspirational but also describes the model, the 3D sculpt, and doesn't show off in ways that like make it harder. Because I think one trend in painting that I'm seeing now, and I'm 100% on board with, is that like more color in the early stages. So like the recesses will have like purples and blues and stuff. Like how would you describe that?
I've more of I've the influence for me specifically comes from looking at the way that Marco and Alexandra from Craftworld Studio
Yeah,
approach
Craftworld Studio,
painting.
yeah.
And so for
Yeah.
me, in a way, I kind of think in my head it's like Craftworld Studio style, even though that's really
Yeah.
just sort of like trying to put a name to something. But then even our friend
They're
Michael,
so
Tabletop
painter. They're
Merc,
so painterly, yeah.
Michael also incorporates a color. Like I was asking him about that at Adepticon. I was like, bro, can you what is this? And I was like pointing at the miniature to describe it. I was like, do you have a word for this color that you create? Because it's I see it on all this stuff, and it's almost like a rainbow sherbet color that he just like bakes into his miniatures on the inside, and it's just such an interesting like approach, and
Yeah.
that's I've been doing that a little bit in the the stretch goal figures like Wise Gwyn and Zistra Kane
Yeah.
specifically had a little bit of those elements where the the two primary factions, the Lotus Guilds and the where I'm missing the name of the Seafarers.
Yeah. Severed hand.
The Severed Hand, thank you. Yeah, those were colorful, but in their own like color, like the green and red perspective,
Yeah. Yeah.
as opposed to like this contrast, like these almost contrasting underpainting values. But yeah, it's this very underpainting, a very craft world underpainting style is kind
Yeah.
of the
Yeah.
word that
And
I
I
use
think
for it.
Stephanie
Yeah,
has sort of
very
adapted
much. Yeah, she's got
where
her own.
Craft World is so painterly that it almost feels like sorcery,
Yeah, it
like
is
Taha,
bizarre.
where you're just like, I don't know how to think about this other
For
than
real, I need to
it's
sit next to you,
magic.
bruv.
Yeah. So, and I think Stephanie's paint jobs look like magic to me, but I also have watched her paint enough and seen the way she layers that I feel like, oh, cool. And I think she changed the way I approach painting in a
Yeah,
surprising way.
to your point, I would
Yeah.
say yeah, I am probably emulating Orion's Belt Minis more than I'm emulating Craft World Studio in
Yeah.
in a stylistic and an approach kind of thing,
Yeah.
for sure. Because yeah, that more colorful approach is a
I
lot of
love
fun
it. Yeah.
dealing with the underpainting. You get to see the color relationships and stuff like that in a different way, and I think bringing that to the topic of like the way that Games Workshop would kind of like handhold you through painting and teach you stuff, this is such a departure from that, where you because if you have to say paint some pants and the pants are Codex gray, and you're gonna
Yeah.
paint it Codex gray, and you're gonna shade it Nuln Oil, and then highlight it with Fortress gray or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you're painting Fortress gray or Codex gray over a vibrant blue, and you're trying to leave the shadows, which would normally maybe be black in a traditional undercoat, now those shadows are blue, and then you're like, wait, do I want to put a shade? I'm not gonna want to shade this, because then the shades is gonna go against the blue, and then my thing gonna look ugly, and so suddenly you're just like, wait a minute, this is different. Like I gotta from how I used to paint using like that base shade, then layer up stuff.
Yeah.
Like these days, yeah, I never use shades. I forget about it just
I
because
know.
of
Yeah.
the other ways to establish
But they're kind of
contrast.
preserving the like chromatic joy of painting, especially when you start with these like fun like great purple and like
Oh yeah,
this this these like warm warm shadows or yeah, it's very interesting. So that's another thing, is like that's what I want to be doing, and that's how I want to approach painting these days, is to like really start with like some watery magentas and oranges, and like come in and lay down these base deep shadows in that are warm or cold depending on my project, and then layering out from there. Like that's how I love to paint now.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the question, is like if we are doing box art that's doing the color play that we as experienced painters are like craving, are we potentially bewildering a new hobbyist in that same way I warned against War Machine and Infinity doing 15 years ago or 20 years,
Mm-hmm.
that where that technique was very fun at the time. Like when War Machine came out, that like non-metallic metal look was exciting to the painters of the world.
Huh.
And then when Infinity's coming out, that airbrush gemstone style that Angel was doing was very
Mm-hmm.
exciting to painters. If we start doing this like love letter to Stephanie, are we going to be potentially creating a painting style that the new hobbyist won't be able to understand as and feel approachable? That's like a fear I have.
I feel you. And so it makes me think, because in ways there's there I haven't developed like a singular style for Relic Blade painting it over the past 10 years, but what I did have is certain rules that I just didn't want to break, so
Yeah.
that when they're all together there's a consistency there.
Yeah, can you tell me what those rules
So
are off the top of your head?
the I think the biggest rule that I think people would probably not necessarily notice at first glance is that, and there's twofold for this. And one is to make what you're seeing more approachable and less intimidating, and really, in a way, instead of putting the ceiling in your face, really just kind of like opening the door. And what that by that I mean, I never really focus on the weapons in Relic Blade. There's
Right. Yeah. Okay.
all of the weapons I try to make very basic, so that even though like the Stonekin Battleborn is wielding a huge blade that could be a crystalline, gleaming, non-metal metallic super relic blade that's awesome. I feel it's more important for the studio side to emphasize his character more, and that the sword you see is just a big sword. And if you want to go, oh shit, I could paint a crystalline super blade on this, then it's like, have at it. But at the same time, I don't want to try and focus on that element of the miniature, because I feel that it would be distracting in that way, where you go, man, this guy's a cool sword, man, that's a sweet sword, and it's like, that's not necessarily what I want you to say when you look at the model, is sort of these other emphasizing areas. So that's kind of the big one, and then the other ones are really related to into like a kind of painting logic that sets up, these guys are always going to have like these colors and these materials, and none of those colors or materials will be present on these guys and these things. So it's sort of a more obvious example, I think, in terms of this kind of logic, would be when we first dropped the Moldorf. I wanted to play with a desaturated tone to emphasize their neutrality in the game, but they also had the phantom, the summon, which also opened up a chance for something to a color to make it really eye-catching and kind of like interesting, and there's what's great about like that set in particular like emphasize that. And something that I tell people all the time about Relic Blade is that you can really take these aspects and like heighten them in a way. It's like having them be desaturated, but then maybe just put the pops of color on like the little potion bottles, and then focus on this one character of the four to really make colorful and interesting. You know, as from painters, there's a lot of interest in that kind of freedom to be able to express, and Relic Blade has a lot of big surfaces. Like I'm thinking about the big brimmed hat on the guy, his little glasses. You know, there's lots of different ways to kind of like express that sort of stuff. So those are the rules. The biggest rule is just I don't focus on the weapons, and that's to make it to keep it approachable, and also to emphasize character design over like coolness, because that's, to me, in stories, even though the sword is cool, it's, you know, the Green Destiny is a cool sword, but it's also about Limu Bai when he wields it. You know, that's the connection. So the character is also equally as important. So when it comes to painting and presenting that to the peeps, I want them to notice that he's got a big sword, but then, you know, perhaps like look past and see the character. Or if I'm thinking about these new sculpts, you know, like the Thunder God, for example, he's got a really cool hammer, and that's awesome. But his face is equally as awesome. You know, you want to look at that expression. Look at his face. He's ready to do some cool stuff. So those are the main kind of rules that I keep in mind when painting Relic Blade.
Cool. Good. Yeah. So I think moving toward that, with like those particular parameters in mind, we want readability of the three-dimensional model. We want to not have a technique that overdoes certain
I think a technique that isn't reliant, because I keep thinking about accessibility.
That doesn't like cover up the sculpt. You know, we want to
that works with it,
but not like hide the sculpt under excellent paint.
Yeah.
You know, like that. I would worry about for when I look at a Corvus belly model or the first editions of
another great example is the Saber Wolf. As I was painting the Saber Wolf, I'm looking at that fool and I go, this man has the most tattooable body.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I'm gonna let Michael do that, because Mike is a tattoo artist. And he killed it. He put those tattoos on that guy. So see, there you go. That's wonderful. I want to paint his lovely skin, that you know he's got awesome muscles.
There's something to be said too, like maybe we need to have the paint jobs be a little bit more on the like heavy metal approach of like, or like kind of coloring book approach where you have like material. But I think also potentially what we could do is have a hobby section that kind of goes through that starting from a chromatic base layer treatment, because it would be a neat way to like invite someone to try a painting technique potentially. I don't know. What do you think? Because you base coated the Thunder God with the blue, and we're able to bring out some of the
yeah, because that was the thing, right? We were talking about blue versus red, and in making that really be a bold thing, a classic, you know, the classic vibes, and like, you know, I leaned into it with a great helm, and like chivalry, you know, like all this. That is such a wonderful convention. And so the idea with this particular one was not only to make them blue, like hit the team colors in my head, because that's another term that I use when painting Relic Blade, is thinking about what's the team color, you know, and what item on the Relic Blade figures across the faction do I apply the team color on. So in this particular instance, the Thunder God has a cloak that has fur, like a big fur part on the top, and a blue flowing coat. So I'm like, we're gonna do blue, it's gonna be blue, but painterly thinking all the extra stuff. Also, I'm gonna underpaint him blue so that his gray skin, because they believe these guys, he's Fog Tribe, right? Not, I believe he's Fog Tribe.
No, they aren't Fog.
They're not Fog. All right, doesn't matter. He's got gray skin from the bookmark. He still letting that blue undertone show up so that when you look at it and you see that they're blue, there's all these other psychological elements of blue, and blue everywhere. He's blue double D. He's got a blue house with a blue window. It's sort of kind of like creeping out everywhere. But what I'm thinking of that's actually kind of really exciting for me, because you've heard me say the contrastal bombastal technique before, right? And I mean, I probably maybe mentioned it on the podcast. If only enough over when I was hanging out with Scott Miniac, he was so amused by my description and you talking about this technique that we ended up shooting stuff and incorporating a little bit of it as we were painting the figures for the volleyball thing. Because I was like, I want to use this technique to show you how I get miniatures painted fast. Didn't really work because didn't have any of my own brushes and was using army painter stuff. We ended up getting around, but it was kind of like this is not. I need to be back in the lab to really show you exactly what I'm meaning. But that particular technique is reliant on something that kind of didn't really exist 10 years ago. And that when we talk about accessibility and kind of like onboarding, building a look that is achievable for people, that and how do they achieve it? The contrastal bombastal technique is really reliant on two things. Your regular paint, like say we gotta paint blue, gotta paint a blue color. It's like pick a color blue that you want, whichever one. The idea with the contrastal bombastal technique is then the other part of it is using contrast paints, or in this case also speed paints, are work as effectively as good, but particular ones. For example, thinking about a blue, the contrast paint that I would use is Leviathan blue. It's a very super deep pigmented blue tone that if I was to pick, say, like a ultramarines blue, a very bright blue, that blue is what I'm aiming for. That's my main color. That's what I'm looking for. Mixing in Leviathan blue into that using the dark contrast pigment will immediately desaturate it and start taking that blue down to like a really nice shadow. And in that way, I think there is totally a technique available that I could think of for painting this new set that essentially is starting from, there's two. The basic one, you're for painting my first minis type of approach would be to lean on army speed paints or contrast paints being your base. This is, you get your colors down with this, and then here we can push it. Like this is how it was pushed forward in like the Relic Blade style. Because one of the discussions that we were having with this particular model that I'm using with the Thunder God is it is painted in that underpainting style. So he's got these magenta shadows and these blue shadows and stuff, and it looks really cool. But it is not that. It's not a traditional shade base style. And I was thinking, yeah, we could totally do that and bring out those dark contrast lines, really make it give it a little bit more of the comic booky feel by leaning into lots of dark contrast as opposed to colorful contrast. And then on the other end, yeah, we could totally talk about these different styles of painting with the underpaint and how to do that, because it would be different if I was to have this blue undercoat. Can't really use contrast paints in the same way. The effect relies on the way that blue paint interacts with this light gray paint, specifically.
Yeah.
And so I think doing something like that, because if I think back to like the very kind of wondering which models I might have painted in the studio range like this, because the Lone Guard and Dark Wanderers, which are the oldest stuff right now, probably 2000s, late 2017, early 2018 was probably when those were painted. They're the first. They're pretty much the first, and those ones were.
Those are from 2016, even earlier than
Oh,
that.
really? Okay, yeah, yeah, okay, yeah. Snap. Where those ones were painted kind of within a traditional layer painting style with a lot of black. I think they was using black, like a literal black ink at the time, to kind of like cut up some of the lines and stuff. But there was a time in the Relic Blade range where they were just painted with, just that traditional style, just layering them up from a very dark color, and then ending up at this kind of like opaque highlight that looks really cool. And so with the way that painting this guy up, like the other thing that like painting this particular model, I'm not sure what the production cut might be, what parts will glue and where and stuff, but the overall shape of painting this guy was so dang fun that I can really see a contrasty style kind of really working in a fun way.
Think looking at the Relic Blade range photos on the website, which definitely stand out better care by me to take the photos, but like looking at them, I think some of the because it's been 10 years, you didn't paint these all at once.
Yeah.
Some of the paint jobs have, like, I think a little bit too high of contrast in certain aspects. It's hard to say exactly, but like some of them are very hyper, I think extremely effective with the parameters we've been talking about, and then others that came out a little bit different. So I'm trying to see, like, it looks like with the on the homepage there's a photo of the Wretched Hive set, and like I think they came out really nice. There it isn't as many like deep dark blacks, and then same with the photos I have of the Apostles of the Deep, where it's the 4 characters, no goblins. But then
here those pictures.
But then like one of the Ogsul pictures, well, the Ogsul are really good too, but there's such dark recesses in the musculature. I don't know. I'm trying to figure out, like, as a outsider looking in, whether
I would say for me the peak
know.
kind of style that sort of blends a traditional highlighting up to like a really contrasted to maybe even a too contrasted point would be looking at the Storms of Corral. Those two have a mix of the color under colored painting, because I wanted to make the adversaries have a red in all of their shadows, and I put like a purpley blue in the advocates. But then on top of that, they do have a much more dark to like high contrasted highlight style. And yeah, it looks, and they're also a little like they're also desaturated in some ways.
Yeah, I think I'd want higher saturation because the thing is, like, in certain photos, like I've been able to like use like in certain photos the colors come through better, and then in other ones they wash out a little bit. It's just like part of miniature photography is really difficult, but trying to deliver a iconic recognizable, kind of more along the lines of how the superheroes in MCP, you can kind of like see them from farther away, but maybe not quite as intense as a superhero. But like, I wonder with like comic, because not really comic book style with the black lining, but cartoony in like bold colored areas. Because I think in the Storm set, the blue tabard
The blue tabard
or
is like
really more
so
of like a
color.
gambeson on the Warden of Justice. I
Hmm.
think came out like really nice as like a
Yeah, so
when you
colorful
paint
there.
that guy, you know where to put the color stuff versus where to put the other stuff. And I think if a blue cloak on the infiltrator would have been like too much, but it does feel like he could have had more blue.
Hmm.
I don't
Yeah,
know.
it's,
I'm just trying to imagine, but and then yeah, I don't know. Trying to figure out what the perfect execution will be for creating uh, uh that iconic aspirational
yeah,
and
no, for sure.
achievable um striking where when we photograph them like people can see what the forms of the figure are, how to do highlights for that. um because like but also of course keeping the shinobi style that's developed and created this whole Relic Blade range in such a wonderful space. It'll be fun to approach because like I said, I'm gonna have a lot more copies of this box set. I'm gonna make sure we have photos of the painted models like on the packaging and in the book, and uh, and the opportunity to try and do like a painting guide or something. I don't know, man. I feel like there's a lot of
There
there.
really is, and I think it's a really. I'm excited to try because like painting this Thunder God guy in the way that I did, it was like classic Relic Blade vibes where I was taking my time, not necessarily on purpose, but just because I was like, I guess I could highlight his face some more. Let me, like I was kind of flying through it and
Yeah.
being like, oh man, how do I actually push this? Like he was so like, game ready, like so fast. To be
Uh,
like, oh, this guy's ready for battle. That I was thinking, man, how would I push it? What would I really want to like
mm,
emphasize? And with this type of approach, it's a little different because like with this colored approach, the it's almost like the distance that I'm shooting for isn't as far in a way because the all of
mm,
the work, like it took a while to do undercoating and stuff, and I'm thinking about that, and it's like, well, that's part of my brain's like, wow, it took a long time to prep that, like in almost a way that you haven't even started painting, and then I'm like, no, brain, actually did a lot of painting just then, like that's a part of this whole thing, where if I was to just do like a kind of more traditional, like if I was going to teach somebody to paint Relic Blade, that's kind of what I'm asking myself in my head is like, if I was to if you listener wanted to learn to paint from me Relic Blade, what is that, what is that style, what does that look like? And I do think that it would very much lean into an accessible, approachable style that is more kind of like we were saying. It's not necessarily about these being a great painter. It's really more about what techniques am I going to apply to make the this miniature that you've already done a great job to make these shapes look awesome, so that I can just kind of do that and get it over with, so to speak. I'm not really trying to make a bunch of creative decisions, just
mm,
just a few, and maybe when I'm making those few, I'll go off in the weeds on some aspect here or there, but not to immediately lose you with, oh my gosh, like holy crap, his how did you paint the lightning on that? It's more
yeah.
just you just kind of see like this cool thing. And so yeah, that would definitely be a, for lack of a better term, a kind of ABC style that is more approachable. And I think that I will, now that we've chatted, we might continue to chat more about what we want these to look like. Because
Oh yeah, sure.
I'm
Because
thinking
I
about like
want
this
to.
cartoony style, and I'm thinking about, because when you said more of a cartoony style, to me it was saying like two things, which black lining is kind of like one aspect,
Yeah.
And
But
then
that's not really what I meant.
yeah,
Because I
that's
don't
why.
want
Yeah,
wargaming.
not just specifically that, right? Because I was also thinking the other side is a little bit of this. I said the term, for lack of a better term, just no blending, but that's not also really what I mean. But just
Uh,
less of a focus on this insane blending to like, twing, and being more bold with these kind of like color placements in the way that one might color a comic book, which is a
yeah.
little bit more deliberate placement of stuff. And
Yeah,
then,
and like a more specific division of material. Like
which the
I'm looking
colored
at
thing kind of
the
runs into.
Wilderkin set. Uh, like your paint jobs and my paint jobs of the um, painted prototypes, being able to have kind of defined materials and colors in like not a paint by numbers, but kind of a paint by numbers, like
Hmm.
specific areas get specific treatments. Um,
You said
yeah,
Wilderkin? Is that the one you were looking at?
yeah, Wilderkin has some nice kind of cartoony. I
Mm-hmm.
think that your new Temple of Justice paint jobs with the green are another like really nice treatment. Yeah, I think that's another really
Yeah,
funny
the
because
only one,
my
the
my
Wilderkin
sculpt
one that
also
I
just
confused
really have
people is
yeah
by being too ambitious with that, and that's definitely a lesson there. Is that is a Stonekin Battleborn probably should just lean in a little bit more with the stone aspect instead of getting
mm,
fanciful with the terracotta aspect,
mm.
to confuse people, so that when they look at that guy, they go, "Oh, he's a stone man," instead of going, "That's a I like that big guy." That big guy's big. What's going on with him though? And then you need me to explain. Oh, well, see, terracotta warrior. Oh, I heard about those.
I think also the severed hand is a really successful kit as far as like divisions of colors and materials.
Yeah, yeah.
Like
Those
really nice striking orange reds,
the
really
big
cool
team
like the
color vibe
blue,
on those guys.
yeah, the orangish. Yeah, I love how that. I love that. So that's kind of more what I mean by cartoony is like
Hmm.
these like really specific
Bold. It reads
colors and that
fast.
like yeah reads fast like that a certain character is on screen in a cartoon, like they've
Hmm.
got a strong design, whereas maybe like the bounty hunter paint job is a little bit older, and then there's like more grays that get a little bit lost in the divisions of like really high highlights and low lights that
Hmm.
make it a little bit trickier to track the
Yeah, especially
uh,
looking at the
shade.
photography here as well
Uh,
of like my photo from back in the day, especially
yeah,
compared to your art, which has this like red next to a kind of like this gray green. The paint
uh,
job leaning with the blue background, especially, is leaning way too closely with the gloves and the metal in her hair. And so you kind of lose the visual distinction, where then immediately the next photo is your art and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, I see the belt color is very different from all of these things, where yeah, this is the desaturatedness of her of her kit, her main kit.
yeah. So I think there's room for um, creating yeah like smooth uh, whole sections that will be readable as like specific breakdowns of material.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I wish I had better photos of your newer paint job so I could, because like the Tahur looks excellent. There's a lot of
Oh.
great stuff going on, but yeah, I think for this one, trying to approach a solid
I'm with
blocky
it.
readable. I think the Apostles of the Deep paint jobs end up being like really iconic and readable, and maybe that's part of why they sell really well. I think the Hellebore of Thog paint job freaking rules,
Oh yeah, no,
and
I
that's
really
got a
like
lot
them.
of that like chromatic,
Yeah, he's a super colorful guy.
yeah, work. I like that a lot. And I don't want to scare people away from painting by having the paint job be too good.
Mhm.
And like people get scared about like mixing colors because this fully is like mixing like
Yeah, no,
eight
he's
eight
very
surfaces.
big vibey. Yeah, I like him a lot.
But so I don't want to scare people away, but oh, man, I really love that. Um,
Yeah, and
yeah,
I think
man,
that that's
miniature
great.
photography is such a pain. It's so difficult.
It's
But that's
really
like kind of part
exciting
of
though,
the
honestly,
discussion. Yeah.
because I think one thing that is consistent that you, dear listener, might understand or might have experienced is like painting relic blade stuff. One, it's not really, never a chore. You don't, it's not, gotta put a little bit more green. Oh, I missed that part. I gotta do this thing. You know, this, when I paint, like for example, right now I'm painting up Deathcore Krieg Imperial Guardsman kit. Wonderful kit, and I really like the scheme that I've come up with them. They're really fun to paint. But when you got to paint so many of them, that production line element of being like, oh man, I just one more dude I gotta hit with this brown, on all these parts, and then you don't want to miss them. There's just never that aspect when I'm like painting a relic blade, and there's lots of different ways to do it. Like a great example is the Swarm Lord, where it's like it's one you paint it one way and immediately you're just like, oh man, it'd be sick though if he was like orange. you
Mm.
know and so there exists a lot of opportunity for fun different styles for relic blade painting. And I think that having the box art specifically kind of not necessarily be the one that looks to the ceiling for to
Right.
really
Yeah.
push it, but then still have, because that's where we're at with relic blade. That's thankfully that's happening. We're like I've been looking at the Curse Breaker Kickstarter a bunch as I've been like researching Great Helm Kickstarter stuff and like
Yeah.
seeing what you did and things, and like it is impossible to scroll down that joint and not stop and look at the Mike Mutiny like cover recreation with the Lone Guard, and like the
Oh
painting
yeah.
quality is like mind bending. You're like,
Yeah. Yeah.
what the hell is going on? And so we do have examples, and there is talented painters that can really, and I think I'm not sure if you used any of Mike's stuff, Mike Mutiny's stuff in Cursebreaker, but Michael Lugo's Cursebreaker stuff did end up in there, a lot. And
Yeah.
his
Lugo.
his paint
Yeah.
styles is just amazing as well, just incredible
Yeah.
to
Because
look at.
he provided, not only did he paint like wonderful
Yeah, the photos
stuff,
too,
but
right?
he took the photos
Yeah,
too. So
yeah, yeah.
I was just like,
He's
oh
the
my
man,
god.
the FOMO mancer. I'm pretty much trying to have him do very similar for Great Helm. I'm like, bro, I need people. They need to see. They need to
Yeah, there just is,
know.
man. There just isn't enough miniature photography in this book. I should have bumped it out a
And
couple more
so
pages. Just
that's a note. That's a note that we want to have part of this Thunder God book and this experience and stuff be this, like, because in one way I think that's interesting. One thing that I've always like kind of found interesting is like kind of noticing the models, like almost developing a relationship with models in a way when you're looking at it and you go, oh, that's that same model, that's that same guy, oh he's been reused in this photo, and oh, that's that guy, or that's literally the model right there
yeah,
that was on the thing. And so like for example, having the box art be the box art, but then you also use miniature photography for the diagrams inside the book, in conjunction with the traditional like Sean style of illustration diagrams, but just like, oh, that's the guy, oh, that's that same miniature, but then in the back
yeah, yeah.
there's
And
a
kind of like a lot of times, there may not, like, yeah, scrutinizing my own website, you may not really get the right, there aren't enough angles, there aren't enough photos. There just like simply are not enough photos of these models to be like successfully selling them. It's amazing that I've been successful at all. But yeah, like there's so much room for improving the presentation of the miniatures. But yeah, like, I don't know, man. A lot of these paint jobs are really nice, and then just not quite enough photography of it. And then I think of someone trying to learn to paint the model and being like, well, what's this on his back? And there's no photo of the model's back.
Yes.
So I think that's the kind of stuff that maybe I'll try and be more aware of as I'm working on photography and everything.
And yeah, and so I mean that's gonna be my goal, because I mean people have always asked, I do have there, like I mentioned, there's rules to painting Relic Blade, but yeah, each time I step up to paint a new set, I'm not like looking at the old sets and being like, okay, does this look consistent? I really am just trying to bust new styles and make sure that we have cool looking models. But with that in mind, really developing a look and a sort of methodology for how I'm going to paint this new set so that so that it's viewable, and then also we could tell you guys kind of how to approach that and just everything demystify, and also just kind of take away any of the fanciness to make the I guess, for lack of a better term, we're taking the basic elements and then kind of just being like, this is what we're working with, and what kind of cool stuff that you can do with that without it being, it doesn't have to look a certain way. Like there's people that I see painting stuff, or like, for example, someone made a great helm board, and because of where the game is at and because of where the play testing's at, just how the game is right now, I was like, that's the coolest great helm board in the world, literally. That's the cool. That's
one thing that's fun about indie games is you can be one of the best.
Yeah, and so with Relic Blade, it could be that sort of style where we can really develop an entry thing, and then really be able to allow people to go in these crazy ways, and then we have people that are quite literally some world-class painters doing things in a really just a mind-boggling way.
Yeah. All right, so wrapping up, you guys now know I'm going to Relic Blade plastics.
It's in the works.
Are in production. I'm working on it.
He's sculpting it,
and I'm really excited about it. I'm sculpting more. I'm sculpting
even more.
So the 2-player set will be delayed because of production schedule, but I am presently working on a new edition of the Battle Pigs and Bone and Darkness that I'm planning on producing as the new next wave of faction sets in plastic, in hard plastic multi-part kits. So those, hopefully, like, as long as I don't run into any serious creative blocks, those should be available at Adepticon. Also, of course, barring international trade is a major problem, and there are not factories that are working the way I need available. So I'm doing what I can. So that's the plan, is to have Battle Pigs be back in stock as a hard plastic kit, because I cannot produce it in metal anymore. It's way too expensive. And same with Bone and Darkness. Like, that's a really expensive kit to do in metal. And so I'm doing cool new sculpts that will be available as a new battle set. So we can talk more about that in the future.
And we will.
This podcast, we can talk about this week's sponsor. This week's sponsor is Metal King Studio.
The Metal King Studio and the Great Helm Kickstarter also.
Great. Oh yeah, this week's sponsor is the Great Helm Kickstarter, which we
check the preview page.
We'll do a whole episode about that.
Yes.
But yeah, make sure to follow Malev's new project on Kickstarter. It's going to be primarily a book, right?
Yes, that's pretty much all we're really aiming for. Yep.
Yeah, and it's going to be packed with as much creative.
It's going to be jammed. Yeah.
As you can get. So yeah, we're stoked for that. I did a bunch of illustrations for it. So I guess this week's sponsor is Metal Shinobi Studio.
Metal Shinobi, bro. We still need that logo.
Yeah,
I know you got a lot on your plate, but
my head is spinning. I've got to finish these sculpts so that they can start.
No, that's great. That's exciting. Hey, guy, because if y'all are like, oh man, campaign, that's a bummer. Hey, yo, 2 new plastic sets is campaign list coming straight at you. Perhaps,
yeah.
You know,
I'm gonna need.
We're gonna need to do something, but I mean, the fact that you just, you know, the wheels is rolling positively off the track back here, you know. So yeah, appreciate y'all's support. Everybody showing love constantly in the Discord. Keep on asking the questions, interacting, painting, sharing your projects, playing games of Relic Blade, interpreting rules.
You can order the metal pigs while they're still available. You can order the last.
They're about to be grandfathered.
Last of the Bone and Darkness medals, and I'll try to keep those, legacy models available, but there's no guarantee because they're just really costly.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a game that's growing. You know, it's a real thing. It has its own needs, its own requirements. You know, we gotta feed it, otherwise its growth will be hampered and it could even perish. You know, so we're going in a whole different nutrient direction, and I think that it is going to be very tasty, very healthy for the game, and I'm so excited.
Yeah, having hit this 10-year anniversary for Relic Blade, I'm really like trying to return to what we love about it at its like core, because we've done so many side things, right? We've done some solo, a new Magic Battles game. I'm really trying to return to like the fun of heroes, action dice, action economy on your, like, how are you going to spend your dynamic activation? Anyways.
Yeah. All right then.
All right, I love y'all. That's the end of the episode.
Big thanks, everybody.
Be safe.
We will catch up with y'all next time. Relic Buds out. Peace. Slop recorder.